real long-term damage, even though the panic, moral panic itself may burn out quite quickly.
Now, I've got to ask you this question. There's a chapter in your book on academic freedom and teaching. You talk quite a bit about teaching methods and how you reach kids in school and what that means for them to be able to ask the kind of questions they ask. And there's a piece here, I have to read this. This is on page 156 if you have your books. But my favorite class was always the one where I had to explain while the male human penis was so much thicker and the testicles so much smaller than those of the male chimpanzee, and what that meant for differences in social structure and political behavior. So I have to ask you, what do you have to it's not explained in the book.
No. Well, I'm retired now from my main career in teaching, but I used to teach a course I called it biopolitics. And one of the books that we read and discussed in there was a classic by Franz de Waal called Chimpanzee Politics, which is, I would say, the most important book on politics since Machiavelli's Prince. We are very similar to chimpanzees. They're our closest relatives, and we're very similar in many patterns of behavior to them. And both species have a kind of politics in which individuals strive for rank. It's stricter among the males in chimpanzees. There's an actual strict dominance hierarchy from alpha on down. Female rank also exists, but it's more diffuse. But there is an important difference between humans and chimpanzees, or many important differences, obviously. They have nice fur coats and we don't. We have language and they don't. I mean, there are a lot of important differences. But there's an important reproductive difference, is that there's no pair bonding among chimpanzees. And so the political game is played for the payoff of being able to mate with as many prime females as possible. And prime females for chimpanzees actually means older females who are more likely to successfully raise infants. So the competition is not for young females as it tends to be among humans, it's for the older females among chimpanzees. But there's no pair bonding. Whereas human beings as a species are characterized by pair bonding and male parental investment in offspring. Now, in the literature, evolutionary literature, there's a concept known as sperm competition. In species in which there is nothing, no pair bonding or anything like that, one of the ways in which males compete is to produce greater volumes of sperm. I mean, there are many ways, but this is one way. And the greater volume of sperm tends to flood the female's reproductive tract, so you have a higher chance of becoming the father of the offspring. In species like human beings or gorillas, where there's other mechanisms that prevent this kind of polygamous competition, there's sperm competition still exists in human males, but it's much less. While sperm are generated by testicles, and so logically, chimpanzees have larger testicles because it's more important to them to create larger volumes of sperm. Anyway, you can see why I didn't go on at length about this in the book. I had enough problems already.
I had to ask.
Yeah, but it's actually a very serious issue in literature, and so I still teach chimpanzee politics. That's the first book that I teach in my politics courses for master's students in public policy, because I want to give them politics in the raw, so they won't have any illusions about what politics is all about. So seeing how our chimpanzee cousins play the game is I think, very helpful to me.
See, I read the whole book, and that was the one sentence that sort of stuck out.
Pretty mind,
so, yeah, it says a lot about me. But, okay, now I want to invite people to ask questions. We've got 2 microphones, so if you want to ask Tom a question, please line up. I'll ask one last question. If you could please give us your thoughts on Stephen Harper and the PMO. You've been somewhat critical of him and his management style. I just want to give us a few comments on Stephen Harper.
Yeah, it's difficult to do that briefly. There's a marvelous piece by Michael Denton today which you could read online. I'm not sure which newspapers it might have been published in, but I mean, who reads printed stuff anymore anyway? It's all online. So Tintin wrote a column about the speech the Prime Minister gave last week somewhere in Ontario, London maybe. And he talked about the government's record. And there are a lot of really good stories there. And Michael reported that the Prime Minister was relaxed and friendly and kind of humorous and was telling all these good stories. And then in the middle of it, he launched this blindside attack on the Chief Justice. So we're talking about a very complicated person here, and many brilliant attributes, but also a more difficult side, which I think, well, I mean, who's to say he hasn't been successful as Prime Minister, and has been for a long time. But it seems to me that these things that he sometimes does are actually not in his own best interest. But he is one who believes in playing the man, not the puck. So we see another example of that.
Okay, we'll start off with Robert.